everyone and welcome back to my channel for another speed build. So recently I decided to redo a bunch of my biomes and I did do this on my stream, so if you do want to see me do it live then the link is in the description. But I have recently redone my Forest of Valor and I'm now working my Sunlit Plateau, which I decided to record for you guys so you can see what I did. So to start off with, I put in the mini casita into the back left corner of the plateau. This is where I did have it before and I think it's the perfect spot for it, as it is quite a big building and I knew I could decorate around it as much as I wanted to. So first I went in with a bunch of trees. I used a lot of the DLC trees as well as the existing plateau trees. If you don't have the DLC, obviously I do use a lot of the DLC items and foliage in this video, but it can always be swapped out for the standard foliage stuff we have from the base game. So don't stress, it is still achievable without these extra things. As I did go in with the trees, I put in some of the main focus pieces around the casita, like the casita table with lots of food on it for Mirabelle and her family to enjoy, as well as Wally's farm garden. Once I'd done the main pathways around some of the focus areas, I decided to just line the pathways with lots of bushes and shrubbery and flowers. This is going to be a running theme in the whole of the plateau. I used a lot of greenery, so if you are someone who has a restricted item limit because you are on Switch or something like that, obviously this build will be achievable. You just need to use a lot less greenery than I did. I'm playing on PC, so I'm very fortunate I do have a 6,000 item limit, which in this video I am on around 4,000, 5,000, so I do have some left to go with the other biomes I have to do. So my overall plan for the plateau, whilst we're starting off with Mirabelle's house, I wanted to make sure it was a very strong jungle feel, but still had a lot of the plateau features that we had originally, as I love some of the trees we get with the plateau, and I wanted to kind of keep that savanna look, but also just make it seem a lot more overgrown, a lot more bright. So I used a lot more green bushes and plants, whereas before I was using mainly the orange and red ones that came with the plateau, but I wanted to include some greenery ones just to make it have that balance between kind of a dried out savanna as well as a luscious jungle. Once I'd outlined Mirabelle's area and kind of got it sorted how I wanted, I then put in this small little campfire seating area. I had this originally in my plateau and I knew I wanted to keep it and have it right by the entrance, just so it's one of the first things you see when you enter the plateau. So I used one of the wooden benches as well as the tree trunk columns and a campfire. Also, just so you know, there will be some chops and changes in this build more than normal. As I said, it was on a stream, so I did have to kind of cut out a lot of pauses where I was talking to chat or doing other things. So that will be in there. So I do apologise if that kind of ruins your immersion, but it should get better as we go later on. Now, one thing I did change, which was in another biome, but I knew I wanted to move to the plateau, was my beach cafe. Now, for this beach cafe, I did use a lot of Lion King furniture, so I kind of knew when I was redoing the plateau, I feel like it would have been a much better fit to be up here. It did have some of the like Moana features and some things that weren't, but mainly it was Lion King. So I did get rid of this and move it straight up to my plateau, but I had to spend some time trying to figure out where it would go because I did want it to be quite a big area. Once I'd figured out a spot for this cafe, I popped it in one of kind of the larger areas as you lead up to the forbid. Once I did decide the area for the cafe, I kind of chose this larger area before we go into the Forgotten Lands, and I started to kind of map out where I wanted everything to be. I knew I wasn't going to be doing it yet. I was going to be completing the other side first. However, I felt it was important to get this kind of in place and I know where it's going, just so I can make sure I plan ahead. So once I'd mapped all this in, I then decided to make my pathway up to the main waterfall feature. I love this waterfall, I think it's absolutely beautiful, and I wanted to make it kind of a focal point in the plateau and give it its own area as it is such a large piece. Once I'd mapped in this path, I then added a huge amount of trees and foliage in this area. This is something definitely, if you had a restricted item limit, you could definitely not do, and you could alter this to use actual furniture or just to make it less overgrown. That was just the look I was going for, but I am aware that I used a lot of foliage to fill this area up. Something I really did utilise in this biome, because it is so big and so vast, is some of the larger jungle pieces from the DLC. So we have the kind of big bamboo walls, and we also have the tree sections that are absolutely massive. I found these a really good item to use to kind of block off those bigger areas, and I could just decorate around them to make them look really natural and not out of place. I felt like that was a really good way for me to kind of make it seem very overgrown without really exceeding that item limit. So if you are someone with that limit and you do have the DLC, I would recommend doing that in some of these bigger areas. Next, I went in and decorated around my well. I always like to make my well a focal point in my biomes and kind of give them decoration around them just to make them a highlighted piece, as they are so lovely to have in each biome. Off from the well, I knew I wanted to make a small little market area with Goofy's stall and maybe some of the fruit and vegetable stands and a little seating area. So I kind of mapped this in. I wasn't quite sure how I wanted to arrange it and what kind of backdrop I wanted to give it. I know I wanted to make it really overgrown around the edges so it seemed kind of hidden in a way. So when you enter the plateau, you don't initially see it straight away. You have to kind of explore and find the things throughout the biome. As we go through the biome, some of the rock spots are covered by different decor and items. Obviously this is completely optional. I do like to keep as many of the rock spots open as I can so I can access them at all times. However, when I am decorating, if I do cover a couple of them, it's not a huge deal for me just because I know I can access different ones as well. But if that is something you are mindful of, just have a look where things have been placed and maybe alter them when you do create your valley, just because I know some people love to keep them completely accessible. I do, but if I have to sacrifice a couple rock spots for a kind of decor item in my valley, I don't mind too much. Also, this speed build is quite a long one compared to my usual one, so if you are going to be here for a while, which I very much appreciate, don't forget to get yourself a drink and stay hydrated, as well as grab a snack if you choose to, just so you can enjoy the video. So once I completed that first side, I then moved on to the next side. So I'd already placed Simba and Nala's home right in the back corner. I knew this is where I wanted it to go, and just to pop some trees and things like that behind, just to make it really covered over, but I felt like this was the best spot for them. Another item I'd already placed in was a little seating area with some of the Lion King sofas, as well as the branch partitions, the rug and the plants. I knew straight away I wanted to have this in here, as I just felt like it was such a cute cozy spot where people could sit and hang out. I then continued my pathway all around. I was kind of debating how to do the pathway, as it is something that is kind of, I find difficult to do for some reason, but I wanted to make sure the path did go quite tightly around some areas of that large pond we have, just because I wanted to make it so that it was, you could easily access it at any time. After that, I did focus more on the kind of rainforest cafe vibe I was going for. So this was very much inspired by a place called Rainforest Cafe that I went to growing up. I don't know if other people have this where they live, but at least where I am, there is a place where we can go, and it is basically a restaurant that is designed to be like a rainforest. It's indoors, but it is completely decorated, and they have animatronic animals and things like that, and it was something that when I grew up I absolutely adored going to. It was a very rare occasion, but I absolutely loved it. So I felt like I wanted this to kind of be inspired by that. Obviously, we don't unfortunately have any kind of animal statues or anything like that that I could use to kind of bring that vibe. But when it comes to a very hidden, overgrown kind of jungle themed cafe, I really felt like that's something I definitely wanted up here. I started by kind of blocking out all the things I wanted to go in the cafe before coming back to it later, as I did need to craft a bunch of food and things like that just to really decorate it how I wanted it to be, but I did loop back round to that at the end of the video. So once I had finished the main part of my valley for the most part, I then moved on to Scar's kind of lair area. I was debating putting him in Eternity Isle in the desert. I feel like his home would have looked really cool there, but I just feel like this spot in the Sunlit Plateau is just too perfect for him to move. I feel like it's just essentially made for his home, so I went in and decorated around there. For his area, I didn't want to add too many furniture items or too many pieces of foliage, just because I felt like it was such a dry and desolate area. I wanted to keep it looking that way. In this area I wanted to use some more of the kind of desert looking items we got from the DLC, so some cacti as well as the desert trees. I feel like they just made more sense in this area, as if this is kind of the part of the savannah that has dried out and turned into a desert. After this, I then went back to the restaurant area, and as I said, I popped in a load of food as well as some lights and stuff onto the counters just to make it look like a real restaurant, so it kind of felt a lot more homely in there. So as you can see, I've included some pictures of the biome. I hope you guys did enjoy the video. I really love doing this. It did take me quite a while, but obviously it is quite a big biome to complete, and I wanted to kind of do it all from inspiration rather than plan too much. But I hope this gave you guys some ideas for your plateau. If you do have any questions or queries, do let me know in the comments, and don't forget to like and subscribe. It always means a lot, your guys' support. And if you do want to see any other speed builds from me, please do let me know in the comments. I hope you guys have a good day, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye!